Folks, as soon as we get a green light here, we'll start the meeting. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Edina City Council meeting. It is Tuesday, August 18th, 2026, 7:02 p.m. As Director Bennerod indicated, we are doing these meetings in a hybrid fashion. People are watching remotely, have been during the pandemic, and ever since the pandemic, we continue to conduct these meetings in this form, which I think is important for our residents to be able to either watch remotely or be in City Hall itself, in council chambers, to share their views on things. We don't have any public hearings this evening. There's one chance for community comment, and typically we would cover things that, you would not be able to talk about things that are on the agenda or scheduled for a future public hearing. There's one person here, I think, that's going to speak tonight on a matter that is indirectly related to something that's on the agenda. I'm going to let her speak. So having provided that information, and there's the call-in information if you want to call in if you're watching from home or some other location. I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask our clerk, Sharon Allison, to call the roll.
Councilmember Agnew's absent. Councilmember Jackson. Here. Councilmember Pierce.
Here.
Councilmember Risser.
Here.
Mayor Hovland.
Here. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everyone. We've got a form of meeting agenda that's been published for the benefit of the council and staff and the general public. Is there anyone on the council or from a staff standpoint that wishes to modify the agenda in any form or fashion? Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda as published?
So moved.
Member Jackson moves.
Second.
Member Pierce seconds the adoption of the meeting agenda as published. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Risser.
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce.
Aye.
All right, we have a meeting agenda and we have something to work from here this evening. And the next thing on that agenda is community comment. And if there's anyone in the audience that wishes to address the council on a matter of concern to them, please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Abby Reynolds. Good evening, Mayor Hovland and members of the City Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight about an issue that has become increasingly concerning for my family and our neighborhood at Arneson Acres Park. I live next to the park and we love Arneson Acres. It is a beautiful garden and a real asset to our community. That is exactly why I am asking the city to protect it as a public park and not allow it to become an unregulated venue for large, private, commercial-style events. Throughout this summer, we have repeatedly seen large gatherings and elaborate luxury picnic setups occupying substantial portions of the garden. These events can involve dozens of people, large tables, backdrops, balloons, decorations, and amplified music. On August 8th, for example, there were multiple large gatherings beginning around 4 o'clock p.m. One had more than 50 people, and the largest continued until about 10 o'clock p.m., with the teardown continuing until approximately 11 o'clock p.m. Bright lights and headlights were shining directly into my home. But the most serious issue for my family is the noise. These gatherings have repeatedly included loudspeakers playing music, sometimes with explicit language, as well as shouting and screaming. The sounds travels directly into our home and into my young children's bedrooms. This is not an occasional inconvenience. We have made multiple calls to the non-emergency line, including July 29th, July 30th, August 3rd, and August 6th. We have also tried speaking directly and politely with the people holding these events, explaining that the noise is going directly into our children's bedrooms. On August 14th, we again had to call because of loud screaming and a loudspeaker playing music. It was after dark and the park was otherwise quiet. Sudden loud screaming coming from a darkened garden frightened my children and woke them from sleep, a common occurrence this summer. I have also spoken with the parks director, and I want to be very clear that I wholeheartedly support his efforts to address and control the situation. I appreciate his willingness to work with the problem, and I am asking the city to support those efforts with meaningful and consistent enforcement. There's also the important issue of public access. Arneson Acres belongs to all all Edina residents. Residents should be able to walk into the garden, enjoy the flowers, take a peaceful stroll, or simply sit and appreciate its beauty. When large private gatherings and elaborate
Reynolds,
setup...
I need to have you wrap up your remarks. I'll let you
Yes.
drift over a little bit, so
Okay.
you can wrap them up.
Our family should not have to choose between allowing late-night park noise or calling the police because a private gathering has effectively turned our neighborhood park into an event venue. We love our artists and anchors, and thank you for listening, and I hope you take this seriously.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Thanks
you.
for being here. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Come on up. And it's better to use the side podiums unless you have something from an overhead standpoint you wanted to show the council.
No, this is
Okay,
fine.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Derek. I'm a concerned citizen. I'd like to talk about the city's contract with Flock Safety for automated license plate readers. From what I understand, I know the city remains committed to using Flock for automated license plate readers and ALPRs in general. I think this is a decision that the public should get to be involved in, as this technology, the way that it works is that it tracks every single person regardless of whether or not you've committed a crime. I think it's something that tracks all citizens, should have the consent of all citizens, or at least be brought to a vote. I don't think, I certainly know a lot of people who aren't happy with the idea that these things just showed up overnight with no one, and no one gave any approval for this. And I just, I think that there should be some sort of public forum held about this. I personally don't think the benefits of this technology outweigh the risks, and I don't think that the benefits outweigh the significant price tag either. And I guess those are all the comments that I have for tonight.
All right, Mr. Kosh, have you seen the material that our PD has released on this topic, which is something that others have expressed concern about?
Yeah.
You've seen the brochure and the...
Oh, there's a brochure?
Yeah.
I would love to take a look at the brochure.
Okay. If you would share with the communications director your email address,
Absolutely.
we'll get you the material that we've prepared to release to the public, because we know there are concerns about benefit versus invasion of personal privacy.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Carter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for being here.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, in the minutes of the meeting, or somehow, can we make that information in response available to everybody in the public who'd like to see that? Is there a way of?
I mean, it's online, Ryan, or it's
Okay.
about to be online?
If it's not online, it will be coming on soon. I know Lauren was working on the final draft, so
Okay, and
it
that
will
would
be
be
on the police department website under LPR.
wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that suggestion. Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the council on a matter of concern to them?
Hi, David Frankel. Obviously, I didn't hear any discussions about Braemar Arena, but for better or worse, I spent a large part of my life in that facility. That building, the West Rink, is 60 years old. I heard in the meeting earlier in the work group, life expectancy of roofs, roughly 20 years. Well, it's at around 60. It's a steel roof. And people at Braemar Arena refer to what's under between the roof and the arena, the attic basically, as a zoo. That place is probably full of wild animals. But in any case, there needs to be a long-term plan for that facility because it's way past its useful life. It's a cinder block building with a 60-year-old roof. It could experience some catastrophic issue in the short or long term that would need immediate replacement, and there's no real plan for it. The other thing is, about 10 years ago, the city unilaterally took away all advertising, the dashboard advertising, from the Youth Hockey Association as well as the concession stand, hoping to make a smaller gap in the deficit for Braemar Arena. Neither one of those make a lot of money, but it upset and burned bridges for a lot of potential sponsors of that arena, including a large medical device company. They didn't realize, they weren't told that that money was being sent to the city and not to the youth hockey. The other thing is, you talked about budgeting for AI. If you purchase any type of technology these days, it's going to have AI embedded in it. How are you going to determine what % of that product is going against your $2 million supposed budget. For example, drone is a first responder that I talked about a couple meetings ago through a company called Skydio. That's loaded with AI. How do you determine how much of that's going against your budget? Just about any healthcare system you would purchase has AI in it. So setting a budget, I don't know where that's going to come from. You just don't go out. If you want to go buy access to ChatGPT for $20 a month, you got a lot to use there under $2 million. Software products already have this stuff embedded, the vast majority of them. The last thing is, I heard nothing in the budget about dead tree removal. I'd make a guesstimate, and I have a YouTube channel that has a lot of them on it, Edina Issues in YouTube. I would guess there's at least 50 dead trees on public land in Edina, and none of them are being removed. If you may remember, maybe 5, 6 years ago in Eden Prairie, a dead tree fell on a woman and killed her. That cost the city a few $1 million. Can't have that happen in Edina. There's a lot of dead trees along public sidewalks and public trails, including Arden, Pamela, and Weber Park. It's loaded with dead trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frankel. Anyone else? Good evening. Please.
Hello, my name is Helen Ferraro. I'm an Edina resident for 4 years. I have reviewed the City Council's proposition for the policy that you wanted to have as far as in response to what happened at Yancey Park. Is this an appropriate time to talk about that, or is that public comment, or do I have to wait until you actually bring it up?
You wanted to address the issue at Yancey Park?
Yeah, well, address the city's response to that with the proposition as far as how you were going to manage large gatherings.
Oh.
Yeah, is it okay to talk about it now?
Yeah, we had somebody else speak about it, so I think it'd be okay.
It's okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
My concern is that the proposition or policy as it stands right now, as I understand it, could allow for racial profiling. There could be a lot of confusion as to how this is going to be administered. If you are requiring a permit for gatherings over, I think it's 25 people, are the police going to require a permit be presented to them if they see a gathering that they think of people who are all related or who are coming together for the same purpose? Are people going to be required to bring a permit, have that on hand in case the police want to question them about that? How is a police officer supposed to determine if a group of 25 people who are in the pavilion or in one of those covered park structures, how are they going to determine if those people are all together, or if it just happens to be a collection of people that seems that they might be all together for the same purpose? So I completely understand that something needs to be done in response to what happened. I appreciate everyone's fear as far as gatherings of teens and what that can, the trouble that can bring. I just urge caution in how this permit requirement is going to be administered so that the police are equipped with the proper information as to how to administer this, and that people know if they are gathering that they need to bring a permit. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Ferraro. And I think if you have a chance to stick around, you'll hear the presentation, and hopefully there'll be some enlightenment there.
Good evening, Mayor,
Good
Council.
evening.
My name is Ralph Zickert. I want to thank Manager Neal for his 2027 budget proposal, his magnum opus of unsound and unsustainable. The so-called 6% levy increase is once again not based on spending cuts, but optics. Optics that put the 2026 budget to shame. So how does Manager Neal propose to achieve a 6%? Easy. The proposed budget takes $7 million of prior year's tax surpluses from city coffers to do a one-time buy-down of the levy. A buy-down that includes $2 million to pay off debt on which the city pays 2.5% interest. Council members, How many of your constituents would pay off their 20-year, 3% home mortgage, knowing they needed to turn around and borrow at today's 7%? A lot of talk is about sustainable budget. So council, where will next year's $7 million windfall come from to help pay for the $60 million plus of remaining deferred maintenance, or the tens of millions in future capital and equipment, the details of which still have not been provided to the council, yet you're looking to set a preliminary levy on September 15th? Finally, the question I have for the council is, how can our city council call this job status quo? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ziegert. Anyone else wish to address the council? Okay. Sure, come on up. Good evening. Yes, I think it's best to use the side one.
Did you fill out your card yet? No, I haven't filled this one out yet. All right. This is not even working.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Marcel. Nice to meet you all. I'm a parent and a community member. And I would like to address, there's a whole lot of information that I still don't have in regard to some of the recommendations that is made towards the parks of Edina. But I have a suggestion in my belief and my personal feelings that some of the comments that I have read or some of the recommendations that is already made to close the parks or even make the recommendations where someone makes the request prior of using the parks will make it much more difficult to youth and young people, where it will provide more criminalized action against young people, where they will utilize these parks regardless what the ordinance that is restricted that will come out of it. So even though it is very important that we focus on the safety as a community collectively in regard to what has been going on, I think the restrictions that has been mentioned and recommended will create more problems and more biased towards young people where they will be criminalized. And I will encourage you to look into, are we gonna focus on a resolution that is gonna be positive for the young people in our community and our community collectively? Or are we gonna make an ordinance that will also backlash and be biased and will create more criminalized against young people who their lives has not even started yet? Moving forward, I will have more recommendations or resolutions of ideas as a community member, but at this point, I would like to mention that, which is some of the things that I have read, even though I wasn't present last meeting, that I will request that you consider in your decisions, whatever recommendations that you receive, to be a one that actually creates a resolution that it's good for young people and the safety of the community, and not just a restrictions that is made to criminalize young kids that their lives have not even started yet.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed.
Thank you. I appreciate it for the
Yes.
opportunity.
Thanks for being here. Anyone else? Let's check with anybody online. Nobody online. We had a good amount of time to be able to have folks come online. Okay. Our practice is to go to our city manager and have him answer some of the concerns or address some of the concerns that were raised at the prior council meeting. So let's do that now and have Manager Neal address some of those things.
Thank you, Your Honor. We had two questions at our previous meeting on August 5th, both having to do with our water system. First question was the city impacted by recent cyber attacks on public utilities in the metro area? Our answer is no. In response to the recent coordinated cyber attack targeting more than 30 Minnesota municipal water systems, the IT department and the utilities division, both in our city, have been closely monitoring the situation in coordination with the state and federal partners. After reviewing our environment, staff found no indications that Edina systems were affected by this attack. Second question is the city's water system safe from cyber attacks? The security of the city's systems is monitored continuously by both internal and external staff, and our defenses are adapted as new threats emerge. Edina's water system is also designed so that core operations can continue safely, even if remote systems need to be taken offline. Staff perform regular security audits, vulnerability assessments, and tabletop exercises to continually identify and address potential weaknesses. Staff remain vigilant in protecting city infrastructure and will update the City Council as appropriate.
All right, thank you. Thanks for that update. Did that prompt any inquiries or comments from council members? I did think of a couple of things I could address for Mr. Frankel tonight. In fact, I just did today a mayor's minute on trees, dead trees in the city parks and dead tree removal. And you may want to watch that. They're taking down trees, I think, that pose a risk, but the ones that are taken down aren't necessarily removed. And I don't know if that was a concern or not because of various factors that are ecosystem related. So yeah, folks in the parks may see in these natural environments that a tree is down, been taken down, but it won't necessarily be removed because it has some environmental benefit. And then we've got our park director here, and he can maybe address this quickly when he stands up to speak. We do have a long-term plan for Braemar Ice Arena. We're spending.
We do, but I'd prefer to be able to answer that at our next meeting so we can give a full and factual answer to it.
Yeah, my only point is that we've committed to spending a little over $40 million at Braemar Ice Arena. Okay. Let's move on then to the next portion of the agenda, which is the adoption of the consent agenda. And Member Risser wants to remove item 6.5 just for discussion purposes. And is there any other council member that wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda or a staff person? Okay. With the exception of item 6.5, is there a motion to approve the balance of the items on the consent agenda in a single motion?
So moved.
Second.
Member Jackson moves, Member Pierce seconds the adoption of the items on the consent agenda in a single motion with the exception of item 6.5. Any further discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Councilmember Pierce.
Aye.
Councilmember Risser.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
All right, the items on the consent agenda with the exception of item 6.5 are approved, and I will turn to item 6.5. Which is a proposed construction cooperative agreement for a local trail connection to the 9 Mile Creek Regional Trail with Three Rivers Park District. And I think Member Risser wanted to make a comment and maybe an inquiry as well. Member Risser.
I am just so happy that this is actually going to happen, and it's sort of a missing link. I think it's really important that people who are in the southeast quadrant of Edina, particularly with this new Hennepin County Library, have multiple means of accessing that. And so this is a oddly shaped little strip of Edina land, and it will be turned into this pathway, making it possible for kids who go to Richfield schools and for Richfield kids to much more easily access the library. So I think it's a really great thing, and I just wanted to call that out. I don't think I have any questions about it, but I'm very happy to see this move forward.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I think it's going to be a great little trail connection. Would you care to move the matter, Member Risser?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Member Risser moves item 6.5, which would be the approval of the cooperative agreement for construction of a trail connection to Nymel Creek Regional Trail with Three Rivers Park District over on the City of Richfield boundary. We've got a motion by Member Risser, second by Member Jackson. Any further discussions? Roll call, please.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce.
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Councilmember Risser.
Aye.
6.5 is approved, and we will be entering into that cooperative agreement. And now we're going to move on to the reports and recommendations portion of the agenda. And the first item there is a resolution accepting donations. We have to have a supermajority to do that. And is there a motion to adopt Resolution 2026-46?
So moved.
Second.
We had a motion and second, motion by Member Jackson, second by Member Pierce to adopt Resolution 2026-46, which accepts donations on behalf of the City of Edina. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Pierce.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Aye.
That Resolution 2026-46 is approved. There were a couple of nice donations in this reporting period. For the Park and Rec Department, Polly Norman and Richard Fox donated $3,200 for a bench donation. Thank you, Polly Norman, one of our great photographers, and has taken many photos of the United City Council over the years and other wonderful photographs as well. And then the Communication Department received, I think it's an in-kind donation from the MPX group. So thank you to those donors. Next, we're going to move to the reports and recommendations, or onward on the reports and recommendations portion of the agenda. And the second item here is 7.2, which is a proposed ordinance that would involve some additional restrictions for park and publicly owned properties. Manager Neal, do you have anything, or I just turn to Director Vetter?
Well, we had some discussion on this topic at our August 5th council meeting. We took some feedback from all council members individually and as a group. Director Vetter was not able to be with us at that meeting, but he's here tonight. He's had a chance to consider that and also feedback from a couple other community institutions. And so we're here to make another presentation to you on a revised ordinance.
All right, very good. Thank you. Director Vetter.
Thank you, Mayor Hovland and members of the City Council. This evening, we are asking you to grant a first reading for amendments to Edina City Code, specifically Chapter 24, that works on regulation of parks. What we are proposing for this evening is a modified version of what you saw on August 5th. We have gone back and reviewed that meeting, your feedback, specifically looking at how to better shape this, how to better regulate what we had initially proposed on the 5th. We're trying to balance the needs and expected uses of our park system while also preserving people's right to assembly and their right to protected and First Amendment speech as well. So the version that we did propose to you, we have gone back and revised that. We did present that to the Edina Parks and Recreation Commission on the 10th. We were able to add that to their agenda. Had a discussion around the uses of parks, the existing permit structure that we've already had in place, that we already manage, and to gather their feedback, and that feedback is listed in your packet. So we are bringing that information to you this evening. And it really works around our permit structure that we already have in place regarding rentals of our buildings, rentals of our park shelters, and rentals of our athletic fields. And the amendments that we are targeting for you this evening is specifically to require a permit for any group over 25 that is only going to be using our buildings, our picnic shelters, or athletic fields. Where originally we had presented you a very broad overall use in the park system This goes back to just those three key areas: our buildings, our shelters, and our athletic fields. In addition to that, it was briefly talked about at your last meeting, we do not have a mechanism within our ordinance, our city charter, that says if you do have a permit for one of those spaces, that you actually have priority for it. So this ordinance also has that amendment that if you are a group that has a permit and you encounter a group that does not have a permit in the space that you rented, that priority goes to those that are holding that permit. And if you do not vacate that space, you would be in violation of said ordinance. So that allows us to do two things. One is because we have widely and heavily used use of our park system, I put in the staff report, when we look at bookings for just our buildings and our shelters in 2025, now that includes our own use, which does use the park system, we had over 2,400 reservations and bookings within our park system in 2025. For 2026, we're already over 2,000. So we did not have, and that was one of our struggle areas in the past where we did have potentially competing interests within those systems. And especially when we look at how we rent those buildings. When you rent a building or a picnic shelter, we kind of have an AM rental, we have a PM rental, or an all-day. Now, if we go to one of those sites and we prep that site, we clean that site, we get that ready for a 1 o'clock rental, and a group comes in at noon and has their birthday party and leaves a lot of their frosting, now we have an issue because the group coming in did pay for that site and did expect a clean and prepared location. So that is one thing where granting the permit priority to that person does hold. Now, again, that doesn't mean our parks can't be used without a permit. It just means that in that area, if you're a group of 25 or more, we're asking you to pull one of those permits. And if you are using one of those areas, that the group with a permit does have priority. In addition, we are looking to create a separate carve-out for what we are experiencing at Arneson Acres Park. And that is slightly different. As was mentioned earlier this evening during community comment, the use of Arneson Acres has changed drastically. It has really changed the character of that site, largely due to its legacy and long-term planning of the beautification of that park. But Arneson Acres is being used basically right now for a commercial use. And it kind of feels like the social media boom. It's a little bit of the gig economy where people are using that for commercial uses of organized picnics and events. They do play loud music. They are coming when they know we don't have a reservation or dominating that space. And again, charging for that use. And some of these setups are extremely elaborate. They bring in rugs and pillows and tables and catering and sound systems. And we have, in the past, tried to really go at the root cause of that, is to try to find them. Traditionally, they're on social media, Instagram or TikTok offerings. Try to find that at the source. A lot of them are paid through Venmo, so there's not a brick and mortar location that we can go to and try to discuss this with. Just today, one of our staff members found 12 additional social media sites offering these pop-up picnics that we'll try to contact and address. But again, it's kind of a new and posh picnic phenomenon. So when we call that area of Arneson Acres Park the Tranquility Garden, I don't believe right now the use of that is living up to its reputation. So specifically for Arneson Acres, we're trying to limit that area from the parking lot, the gazebo, and the garden, just those areas of the park, to no more than 10 or more, no picnics or events, no amplified or performed music or sound, and no commercial use for this. So people profiting off of our park. And that would be specific to that area. Areas in the next section really lay out our process for permits, 7-day advance notice, that we can add conditions to those. Traditionally, we are not adding conditions to our permits, only if they deviate outside of the norm. For those of you that are not familiar, the city has an overall special event permit license for things that occur like the art fair, or the 4th of July parade, the homecoming parade. This would allow us to add some conditions for things that are outside of the norm within our additional park system. We do get very unique requests. It may be an internal run or a walk that kind of bridges outside of a graduation party, a picnic, renting of an athletic field, so to allow to add some of those conditions. Also, the process for denying one and appealing if that position is denied. And the last piece is kind of a little bit of a break glass in that either myself or law enforcement could declare an area of a park closed if needed to be. And really what that is a little bit of a tool to allow us to evaluate the use and say, hey, we need to prevent either further damage to the park, escalation of that, and really evaluate each case on a case-by-case basis. So not just the reason we were called to a location, but really to arrive upon, evaluate, and understand the goings-on of that site. From a recreational immunity standpoint, some of these activities are a little bit concerning. We always look at an invitee, a trespassee, a licensee within our park system. So when we do get large groups, there is a concern about that pre-plannedness, right? Are they overtaking a site? Are they crowding out a group that already had a permit? Or are we using a park for maybe not its intended consequence or ability, and there are unintended consequences to that. So really looking at that. And, when we think about our building rentals, those are all listed on our website. We've been doing rentals of those locations all the time. So Arden, Arneson, Cornelia, Countryside, Fred Richards, Pamela Todd, Walnut, and Weber, right? We are currently renting all of those locations. We think about those picnic shelters. It's Chowan, Fred Richards, Roslyn, Sherwood, Utley, and Wooddale. So those are those sites that we're doing over 2,000 rentals or 2,000 bookings a year on. Our athletic fields, I think you've probably all heard from your athletic associations that are in town. We have 14 of them that are using those outside athletic fields, right? Heavily scheduled, and we always try to get people to come on. We do some private rentals as well, try to open that up. We have good partnerships with other partners within the community, where we're using Courtney, Lewis, Pamela, Van Valkenburg, Braemar Turf, Countryside, Weber, Wooddale, Yancey, right? We're using all of those heavily for those athletic associations. And we just want to ensure that we do kind of have an orderly process for that and really know when groups are coming and going. So we can either assist in planning for that or understand what we need to do the next day to go back and clean that site. I appreciated Councilmember Risser's view last time on some of the signage that is out in our parks. That was one of the heavy recommendations from the Parks Commission, is identifying these rentable areas and how people could go about that. So really communicating well on that to kind of rebrand in some of those areas to ensure there's kind of that notice of it. And again, we are asking you for that first reading this evening. Second reading would then be on September 1st. As your request last time, there is a Better Together Edina page currently open to get comments on the text that is on site, and that is open until August 30th, so the day before your meeting. There has been a few feedback loops around verbiage. Is there an extra noun? Is there an extra verb? Do we have a double negative? We will work to clean up that technical language for you for the next reading. However, I think the intent is within that we will work with. So that's what I have to present to you this evening for right now.
Questions for Director Vetter? Councilmember Jackson?
Yes, thank you. So thank you for working on this, and thanks for the more detailed explanation of what's going on. I think that really helps us, especially with the Arneson Acres, understand what it is we're legislating on. We always don't want to legislate blindly. And thank you to both the MAC, which I don't remember what that stands for, but our community group that helps with policing, and then also the Parks Commission for reviewing this. The MAC had a couple of really good questions. One was whether this limitation on groups of 25 people would apply to parking lots as well as other areas of the park.
Mayor Hovland, Councilmember Jackson, the way the language is written right now is a group of 25 or more would need a permit to use only a building, a picnic shelter, or an athletic field.
Okay.
And not other areas of the park. I think that was an area where you had some discomfort last time was about, what about this grassy area over here? Or we want to sit on the hillside and watch the fireworks during 4th of July, et cetera. So when we did look at this, group of 25 would only need to, if they're using the building, a picnic shelter, or an athletic field.
Okay, terrific. Thank you for that clarification. So if I did want to have a group of 25 come out and rent one of the athletic fields, what would the fee be on that?
Councilmember Jackson, I can get that for you. It varies site by site, depending on how long you wanted to use that. We have worked as well with some of the varying neighborhood associations on what their actual use is. There's actually one group that well predates me, I think even to maybe 2 prior directors, and we think of the Morningside Athletic Club. They've been in existence so long. We've actually worked to background some of their volunteers, and they have a key to the warming house. So really it depends on use, depends on time, and depends on location, but I can get you a listing of what fees are for the types of fields for the next meeting.
That's okay. I think the answer to my question is it's not changing. It just doesn't have a different tiered level or anything. And it would be just like the Baseball Association using one of the baseball fields. If you wanted to go use a soccer field, you'd pay the same rate that other people would be paying. It's not discriminatory one way or another. It's a set fee that's already in existence.
And Councilmember Jackson, actually the council sets those annually.
Okay.
So there's an annual review. It's a recommendation from the Parks Commission to the City Council. City Council adopts those fees annually.
Okay, thank you. And then, and this, let's see. If an officer is called out and they ask people to go home, they don't go home, and they get cited, what is the penalty? And what are the consequences of not complying with an officer saying, please go home, this is too many people, you don't have a permit?
I'm going to start talking about how we would proceed on a complaint basis, and then Lieutenant Schultz is here this evening to kind of maybe talk about their role in this process. And really, like tonight, we actually have an attendant at Artisan Acres, right, to try to help educate and monitor some of those conducts. So our first point would try to be to go to the source and talk to the individuals, right? Is either what is occurring that drew us there, right? Again, evaluate what's going on, not just take information that got called in. So go to the source, what's occurring, do you have a permit? We already have a group here, we're gonna ask you to either move to this side of the park, we're gonna ask you to relocate. So really try to get voluntary compliance. Ask them to come back, how do you make that reservation? And really try to ensure, as one of our commissioners said, parks are for people. I'm against limiting gatherings. However, I do understand that there's something here that we need to address. So really working on kind of that education and voluntary compliance level to start. And while most of the times that works, we have had examples where that hasn't, where we've had to go to the next phase and actually ask for a presence of Edina law enforcement, and that's where we would turn over to Lieutenant Schultz.
Yeah, to Director Perry Vetter's point there, we would want the park staff to first engage with the issue. If they have to call us in, voluntary compliance is always our first hope there. If we can have the group leave and educate them on what the ordinance is, we're not going to be proactively driving around looking for permits. But if we get called by park staff because there is some type of issue or conflict between holders there, we would ask for some voluntary compliance. To your question on what the end out, if we did write a citation, it would be a petty misdemeanor on this ordinance, if we chose that. Our hope is that it would give us a tool to be able to educate and tell them to leave. If there isn't an ordinance, we may be able to come and encourage them, but if they say no, we can't do anything about it. So.
Okay. And that sounds to me like a trained response that all the parks and police officers are doing. So this is institutionalized so that we're not going to see disparate enforcement of this, this is standard operating procedures. We go with the parks, completely civilian. Hey, what's going on here? Can I answer any questions? And if it escalates slowly and with sort of a trained response that is uniform against whoever it is that we're talking to. Is that a good summary?
I think that's an excellent summary. I would also think either our staff, if they're available to engage with groups, or the police department staff is really looking at it as a way to actually to engage the community as well. Is, you know, what can we help you with? What other items are you interested in? You know, from a programming sense, you know, we do deliver a lot of programs, always looking for factors and availability and offerings, as well as to actually try to engage with people.
Okay, so you opened that. One of the things that I've heard over the years is a lack of teenager activities in Edina. And so I'm going to make that plug. Once again, it'd be great to have things for teenagers to do besides swings and slides.
You are absolutely correct. I think in our role in Parks and Recreation, that is the absolute hardest group to program for. We always look at it as an hourglass. When you're from 2 months old to 2 years old, that's the bottom of the hourglass, and we have so many offerings for you. And as the hourglass goes up, that really gets tight in teenage years. And then once it gets higher, when you think of early adults and adults to seniors, it widens back up at the top of the hourglass. That is the age where, you know, I don't want to be in a formal program. I want to be just with my friends. This type of, I don't want to do this activity because I'm already formally in that one. I don't want to do it again. So that piece in the middle is absolutely difficult to program for. And it's not for a lack of trying, but it's just, you know, use of facilities, interest levels, what they're experiencing socially, academically, just drives a variety of other interests that might not necessarily be Parks and Recreation.
So in the community engagement, maybe they'll come up with some great ideas. That would be very welcome, I think. So I'm going to pivot and play a little bit of devil's advocate and say, you know, we had an event that happened. Will this ordinance give the police the tools they need to try to prevent other shootings and violence in our parks?
I believe this is one tool that will allow us, in an event that we believe a large group is gathering, maybe there's some arguing going on and we have a presence there and we say it's time to leave and people choose not to leave, it will give us an option in the toolbox to maybe go to the next step. We're sometimes limited on, we need some type of law to allow us to tell people what to do, or ordinance.
So this will be a useful tool when things are not going well. You'll have a new tool in the toolbox to help keep things peaceful.
It's another tool for us to help keep things peaceful in the park. And again, it's similar to like our 6-hour parking ordinance. We're not going to drive around and be checking permits, but upon complaints or issues in a park, it does allow us some latitude to be able to do some type of enforcement or education.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Pierce, then Councilmember Risser.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Member Jackson, for that very thorough comments. It covered some of the content that I wanted to hit. And so I've got maybe 4 more points. One is to just kind of ground everybody. I think there were 3 issues that you've talked about today and that we talked about last meeting. One is these pop-up picnics. The second one, I believe in Yancey, there was a friendly soccer match going on, right, on the athletic field. And then 3, young adults then gathered and then someone fired a gun. Those are the 3 things, right? I do want to urge us not to overreact and over-engineer an ordinance against those 3 things. And so what I like about when you and I met, you clarify harness and anchors. And so the comment I made earlier is if people are in our parks doing things that we don't want them to do, then I want them out of my park. Like I don't have any, there's no other way to say that. And you gave two examples. One would be these pop-up picnics. We would like for that not to occur. And then the second one, the firing of the firearm, there's already ordinances against that. You can't fire a firearm in the city limits. And so there's already something there for that. There's no issue with someone playing a friendly soccer match or whatever on one of our athletic fields, unless that field is reserved and someone else has paid and has reserved that, then those folks who might be on there need to be asked to leave. And the police need some mechanism to address those kinds of things. But other than that, I think, I believe our parks have been utilized in the way that they should be without, other than the ones that you've mentioned. And so if all of that is true, I think that what I would ask is for us to consider 15. Oh, so I got to do the whole thing. Section 24, 255, 15. Right? And it says, cannot gather with a group of 25 people or more for any reason without obtaining and being in compliance with an advance reservation permit for the use of a rentable park, building, park shelter, or athletic field. And so what I wouldn't want is if the third one, where someone is playing a friendly soccer match on an athletic field and there's 25 people, the field's not reserved and there's nothing going on. They're just playing a friendly soccer match. They should be able to continue to do that. And so when you and I talked about that, what I would have wanted is some way, and you've explained, and I agree with you, you've explained why we can't do this yet, some way that if a group decided they wanted to play football or soccer or cricket or whatever, and they go to an athletic field, looks like it's open, maybe they can check on their app to see it's open, and right there they could say, I'm registering, I'm gonna be here for the next 2 hours for this match. Now, everyone is aware, you're there, you're supposed to be there, you're registered, you're good. And you rightfully explained some of the challenges of that, but I still would not want an ordinance to preclude a group of kids, right, or young adults using a park in a way that I think is great. And so the way this is written, they would be discouraged from doing that. And so I would encourage us for 15 to just consider drafting that in a way that would allow for the use of an athletic field without violating the ordinance. I'm not sure how you do that, but that's one. Two, I was the most irritated by the pop-up picnics when you describe those. And so for that one, I kind of have the same concern, saying that you cannot gather in those spaces with a group of 10 or more. I think that that's an appropriate use of the space of the garden. If I'm taking prom pictures there, or I'm gathering there with my friends to take photos or whatever, I think they should be able to do that. But I don't want it to be commercialized, don't want the loud music, don't want all the noise. And so I would rather find a way to say, sure, right, you can use the park, but you can't do it in a way where you're commercializing, right? You're creating noise, no loudspeakers, all of that, I'm cool with. But I would not want to draft this in a way that says, you know, our residents who may have 10 or 12 people that want to gather and take photos, like they should be able to do that.
Mayor Hovland, Councilmember Pierce, members of the council, actually commercial photography is allowed in our parks. That's actually addressed not within the park ordinance.
Okay.
There is a separate section in Edina City Code that allows, it actually requires a permit for commercial photography or video production. Say a group was shooting a commercial or something of that nature in our park system, you know, deliberately for commercial uses. That requires a permit. Under that same section, and I apologize, I don't know exactly which item that is, it does allow for commercial photography for non-monetary purposes. So specifically for engagement photos, graduation photos, any of those types of things. Commercial photography is allowed within our park system without a permit. So,
got it.
And really that's people coming in with very fancy cameras and light lenses and maybe a backdrop, and that is much different than I think the use we're experiencing right now in that site. But,
I think the way you're describing commercial use, like we've had the conversation, so I know what you're getting at there. And so I don't, maybe I'm picking at the use of that word. And so I understand what we are trying to stop at the park. So the question would be, if my daughter is doing prom and there's 15 of them and they want to go there to take photos, can they do that? Are they in violation of the ordinance?
They would not be in violation of the ordinance.
And that's not clear to me. So that's what I'm getting at. So that should be an allowed thing for them to do. But at first glance, it would appear that they're not able to do that. They'd be in violation of the ordinance. And it's not just a numbers thing per se. So I'm not quite sure how to address that, but I think you understand what I'm getting at there. And then the last one. So I like 24-258, number 6. And so if I think about, again, the 3 incidents, and I honestly, I keep saying that because I can't think of, I've been on council for 6 years, and I can't think of any other time that there have been these kinds of activities. And so those 3, with number 6, folks are playing soccer, have at it, no issue with that. The commercialization of the park, we're addressing that. Number 6 really is the only one that gets at, in my opinion, the primary reason we're here, which is the incident in Yancey Park, in which my hope would be, and this is my question similar to Member Jackson's, what we really need is to be able to de-escalate those kinds of gatherings, right, whatever they happen to be. And in this case, if there is something that kind of looks, there's a bigger group there, ask some questions. Hey, what's going on? We might have been able to, had we done that, have those young adults leave the park. And if they don't, this is saying we can shut down the parking lot, ask people to leave, again, in an effort to de-escalate something. And so I hit this one because I'm not sure how you would know to go to the park because there's an issue or a potential issue. So there has to be some notification, some way of knowing that that is happening. And today, unless I'm wrong, the only way that happens today is if a resident calls 911, or they might go to 311 or whatever. They have to contact us to say something looks kind of shady out there. I think that's the only way we would know. Unless, I know we're patrolling, and so if the patrol happened to be out there and saw something that looked suspicious, then, so those are the two ways you would know.
That is correct. If we get called to a park from a resident, our patrol officers are actively patrolling the park and have some reason to believe there's some arguments going on or loud conversations and think it's maybe going to turn violent. The third way we may is we do monitor some social media via our crime analysts. So we do receive some intel of some of these pop-up events that are happening at the parks. So we do at times get a heads up, not a lot of time, but that there may be some event and it may involve rivalry groups that may turn that way. So we sometimes do have a heads up to where to patrol.
Yeah. And none of that is new, right? Those are established procedures, I guess, that we have.
Correct.
And we've used those before, yeah.
Yep.
In addition, Councilmember Pierce, we actually have sort of deploy like a park attendant type person to go around and kind of be eyes and ears and really understand evening use as well.
Yeah, yeah, and so I raised that one because it's tangential to Member Jackson's question about making sure there's no bias in the way that this is implemented. And so I'll just use the example. I walk in Yancey Park. I think it was Monday or Tuesday. I'm walking and a neighbor couple passes by and says, "Hey, you're on the council. We were there on the 5th." And she says to me that they live on the corner, and from their backyard, they could actually see that people were gathering. And she said I didn't know what to do. And so I said, well, if you see something, that it's your park too. If you see something, you have to say something. But then to Member Jackson, that really means we're trusting the police to engage with residents in a respectful way. But there's really no other way to do that, right? There's really nothing else. There's no other effective way to do that than to, and Chief Milburn talks about the carrot and the stick, right? Being present in the community so that residents feel like police is a part of the community and they're coming to make sure that whoever's in the park doing things that they should be doing, we want to make sure everybody feels welcome and is safe. And so if as long as we're doing that, I do think that this is at the first reading with those couple of comments I made. I think that this would go a long way in doing that. The only other thing I mentioned when we met is you mentioned that Arneson Acres, they're using the garden there. I actually would want them to do any of this in any park, but maybe they wouldn't go to Bredesen Park to do a pop-up picnic. So I kind of get the beauty of why they're there in that they've made that selection. But that is something that we wouldn't want to have in any of our parks, not just that one. So I appreciate you coming in and looking at this and adding a lot more clarity to it.
Councilmember Risser.
At our last meeting, I had a lot of concerns about number 16. I think it does have some grammatical issues, but in terms of content, it is much improved. And just to be very clear, it does not allow gatherings by a group of people at a rental park, building, park, shelter, or athletic field. You know what? I screwed that up. It's talking about if you do not have priority of use, right of use for that space, and a person has a valid advance reservation permit for the park, building, park, shelter, or athletic field, or an area defined within the permit description, they have priority. And I think that's just fair. And so I think that is just kind of a housekeeping element that I garbled in attempt to read. But I also feel as if 17 needs some work. I do agree with Member Pierce that this could be a situation where they just, the posh pop-up picnic pops up somewhere else, and then we've got a situation in a different park. So I think that is something that we need to take care of. I would hope that there is language in our code that addresses amplifying music that is really loud, and you know, whether you're one person alone blasting your stereo or whatever, that is something that is not okay. And so I'm a little concerned both with the scope being just Arneson Acres and the behavior being a group of 10 or more, you know, because maybe you have a pop-up starting that's sort of a flop, but you've got the organizers there blasting their music, hoping people attend. I don't know, that could happen. The one I am most concerned about is 15, gather with a group of 25 people or more for any reason without obtaining and being in compliance with advance reservation permit, because if you look at the language for getting a permit for an athletic field, it starts at $80 per hour. And I think for that casual group, you know, wanting to do a soccer game or something like that, spend an afternoon with friends, you know, doing a pickup game or something like that, I'm having a hard time with that. And but at the same time, I know we do need to maintain our fields, and when they're used, there is, you know, some issues with that. But I also hear and agree entirely with Member Jackson's point. It would be good to be a city where people can go and engage in athletic events, especially young people, and be able to do that without severe repercussions. So I'm wrestling the most with 15. Anyway, that's where I am right now. However, I do appreciate the additional language that focused on like rentable park buildings and park shelters, because with this, if you've got a casual person just walking through, no one's sitting under the Rossum Park Pavilion, and you want to just go, you know, hang out in the shade or whatever, that's totally fine. But I also, with picnics, I think for the reasons that I've already cited, sort of singling out picnics, which it makes sense because this is the problem we're having right now. But again, I think it really comes down to the commercial use and the noise, the sound, all of that. And I would hope we'd have, don't we have language in our code that says you can't be doing commercial stuff in our parks, except maybe the photography, or am I wrong?
Mayor Hovland, Councilmember Rissell, I'll have to check on the exact language that's in there and get back to you.
Okay.
However, when it comes to sound, we have an overall that you need a sound permit for amplification. However, to actually enforce it becomes a little bit cumbersome. I'm sure when you've encountered like sound issues between neighbors, right? And we have to do a sound study and what is the actual decibel level and is it over 65 for a prolonged period? That's when we started getting into, we really want to have in the Tranquility Garden a limit on amplified and performed sound, right? So we're really looking at trying to set up a special rule perhaps for a special park or a special park area about preventing that noise. Where in the rest of the park system, we do allow it, or, people may play music at their picnic shelter or at their graduation party, but we're really looking at, it's hard to call it the Tranquility Garden when it's not very tranquil. So that's why we're trying to do this carve out specifically for this area at Arneson Acres Park.
Okay.
When it comes to that amplified sound, it's hard to enforce to get readings and what's the decibel level at the property line, and by then it's...
Are there times, like you can't do it after a certain time, like 10 o'clock if it's,
Yeah, our park hours are
Okay.
generally 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So
Okay.
once 10 p.m. hits, that's different. However, that is a long, prolonged time frame to be amplifying music or performing music with some of the social media activities leading up to that time frame.
okay, thank you.
Councilmember Jackson, and then I got a few thoughts too.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a follow-up question based on Member Pierce's comments. When we put the signs in the park to remind people that we want this to be a safe place, and if they feel, threatened, what they can do, can you remind me of what that language says? I think what I'm getting at, I'll just tell you why I'm getting at that, is that if anybody who's in the park feels unsafe, we already have a reminder of what they can do. So it's not just the neighbor seeing or someone driving by, but then if you're actually in the park and you feel unsafe, hopefully that sign reminds you that there are options as well. So that's all I was thinking of. If you don't have it close by, that's fine.
I do have it. Would you like me to read it for you?
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Actually, I'll thank the lieutenant over here. The city of Edina is committed to a safe, welcoming public spaces. If you observe activity that appears unsafe or not consistent with intended park use, call 911.
Okay, good. Thank you. So just to remind people that if they are there and they see other people in their group even getting out of hand, there's that reminder. So if ask people to help keep us all safe.
This has been a good discussion. People are trying to find a pathway that honors, I think, public right or just a sort of public notion of use of public parks, kind of an unfettered use. And we've had some experiences that have caused us to think otherwise, or that we may need to do something about it. When you look at proposed section 24-255, the predicate language there says, in addition to requirements of 24-254, no person shall in any park or publicly owned property. Then it goes on, everything flows well from that. You understand what kind of conduct is prohibited until you get to 16. And then it says, gatherings by a group at a rentable park building, park shelter, or athletic field shall have no priority of use or right of use for that space. I see what you're trying to get at there. And that's the notion that if someone's down there without a permit, they don't have any priority, but it doesn't mean they can't use the space.
That's correct, Mayor.
Yeah, but it needs to be married a little bit more effectively to 15. So, in listening to all of my colleagues up here, it made me think that what you're really trying to do is encourage people to get a permit, an advanced reservation permit. Not mandate it, but encourage it. Because they don't bother to get one and they go down and somebody else is using the pavilion or using the field. Well, that's just the way it is. It's like pickup basketball, unless you get people to agree that winner stays and loser goes home and the next group comes in.
That is true, Mayor.
So it strikes me that one possibility to find a pathway to balance out these concerns that people have is that you encourage people to obtain an advanced reservation permit. And then that language of 16, I think, is really interesting, the start of it. That gatherings by a group at a rental park building, park shelter, or athletic field shall have no priority of use or right of use for that space in the absence of a permit, is what you're saying. A person who's in possession of a valid advanced reservation permit for a park building, park shelter, athletic field, or an area delineated within the permit description has priority use of that defined space. If we could marry up those concepts, where it's not a mandate that you get a permit, but that we're encouraging people to do it. And if you got one and you go down someplace and somebody else is using it, you have priority, and it gives the police the ability to go down there and be the referee, say, hey, folks, you know, you got to go. And what we've worried about is, right now, all they can say is, please go, you know. But what an ordinance does is gives us a little bit of backup from a legal standpoint to be able to say, yeah, you really, you got to go. Otherwise, you know, you put me in an awkward spot, and I'm going to have to cite you for gross misdemeanor if you don't get out of here because you don't have a permit, and these other folks do. So that's at least one possibility with respect to that aspect of it that I'm thinking about. The Arneson Acres thing, what are the park hours different in different parks? Or are park hours uniform?
Mayor, they are uniform with the exception of Braemar Park, where we do operate the arena and Courtney Field later into the evening. That, I believe, is till 11 p.m. Same thing with the golf course has a special rule because of the banquet facilities for weddings to go later into the evenings. But the rest, the majority of our parks are 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
So, you know, what I heard Abby Reynolds say, and I've talked to her on the phone about this, is that really where it gets troublesome is when it's after park hours and they stay. Now, if they're making noise with amplified music, and I don't know what the test is for that you're too loud. I mean, if you got a guitar player there playing an acoustic guitar, that's a different situation than a live band or a DJ with a big speaker system. So you can easily kick them out after dark, the way our ordinance is worded now, right?
After 10 p.m.
After 10 p.m. Even wow. So, okay, that kind of messed up that chain of thought. Also, the way 17 is worded, I don't see any reason why somebody couldn't avoid using the formal garden area, the gazebo picnic shelter in the parking lots, and just go up. You could park in the parking lot and just go up and sit by the building on the patio or spread themselves into the lawn. And they wouldn't be in violation of this proposed form of ordinance.
That is correct, Mayor. We're really looking out for the formal garden areas.
Yeah. Is that where most of the activity has been taking place with the
that is correct,
pop-up
Mayor.
Commercial picnics?
That is correct. Yeah, and this would allow.
They want a little bit of shelter in case there's weather or whatever.
I believe the beauty of the gardens adds to the social media attraction. So, and when we think about that area as well, is like the Edina Garden Council, right? The investments they've made, really looking out for those long-term investments, as well as, you know, when they do their events. Again, we permit so many different groups and activities. Is we're already working with the Garden Council for things like their annual plant sale, right? Which isn't a building, isn't a picnic shelter, isn't an athletic field, but that's kind of one of those special use things where we know this in the spring on a Friday and a Saturday, we know, and we're all well aware that the annual plant sale is going to occur, right? So that's, again, a permitted activity that we work with through those groups.
Yeah, I don't really know how to solve the Arneson Acres situation. I think Member Pierce raised the issue of people. You see people down there all the time taking family photographs, and especially you get to graduation time.
Our intent is that would still remain a viable use.
Yeah, what are we trying to do down there? Maybe we can think about it that way. We're trying to prohibit pop-up picnics organized by somebody who's getting a fee for organizing a picnic. And then there's all kinds of loud music and a lot of noise, and they don't leave.
And because of the, I don't know if this is the right word, but the poshness, I don't know if that's an actual word or not, bringing in like pieces of carpet to sit on, pillows, tables, catering food, catering drinks, props, displays. It's a commercial operation.
You know, somebody stopped me at one of our meetings, and I think it was over at Yancey Park when we had the meeting on that Monday night following the shooting, the firearm discharge episode, and said that they had moved here from St. Paul, and in St. Paul they have park attendants in the parks year-round. Well, we've got them in the wintertime for the hockey, you know, and the ice skating. But it did make me think about, well, what about that Arneson Acres situation? If all of a sudden some truck rolls in and they start unloading all kinds of stuff, including amplifiers and big, you know, they're starting to set up a big operation like it was a wedding. And in one of our parks, we had a park attendant there. They say, "Where's your permit?" And they can't even get set up. So we're not going down there halfway through or after the fact and saying, "Hey, pack it up and get out of here." We got some other way to stop them at the front end. That's something to think about too. How do we stop them at the front end?
This language would allow us to stop them at the front end.
But without somebody down there in the park, how are we gonna know?
We've actually activated a kind of a part-time park attendant, and there should actually be there this evening. And really, we've kind of had to implement that for some of these reasons. I know it's post the Yancey Park occurrence. However, I think these issues have been building over time. We have had a park attendant in the evenings for some time, primarily trying to regulate athletic field use, right? Part of, I think Councilmember Pearson and I talked about it, is a lot of our athletic fields are in really good condition, high quality. We try to maintain them to, you know, the best of our abilities. And not a lot of other communities do that. So we do get spillover use, right? Especially in the spring when our fields are ready and other people's aren't. So we kind of think about this in that same way is, you know, for a while now, we've tried to have park attendants to help our athletic associations that go through the process to get those permits. To say, you know, you do not have it this evening, this group has it. Because in the past it was, well, it's not that we're just gonna not get off the athletic field, we'll just go to this side and you take that side. And our association's like, no, we reserve the full of it. So there's been that push and pull over time, and we've kind of added this part-time position to go out and help on that, and now we're trying to expand that to help in these other areas where we're seeing these issues. So by having someone there, and monitoring, and if this was in place, we could try to prevent that from the setup because it is so elaborate.
Spring, you need to be thinking about something like road restrictions. You think like field restrictions. Yeah. Because they will get torn up then.
Well, and I think, you know, when we talk about number 6 about being able to close a park, I think, you know, outside the safety and security, it is about managing the investment we have in our fields. If we go through and we aerate Lewis Park and we overseed and top dress it and we put up signs that say, you know, field close, and a group comes in and tears those fields down, number 6 would allow us to, again, have a mechanism to formally ask them to leave. So those fields can heal, so they can grow, you know, for, you know, that intended purpose. So we're trying to overlap a lot of these issues, but being very specific on how we address them to ensure, again, like I said in the beginning, that we allow people to use our parks for the intended purposes, but then balance that right to have the right to assemble and to protect your First Amendment uses.
So I think what we're all wrestling with, and I think you are too, is that with respect to the Yancey Park episode, there were a bunch of good kids down there just playing soccer and playing touch football. And then some other people showed up that weren't of the same mindset. And I think everybody's worried about, you know, at the end of the day, if we're not careful, do we end up punishing good behavior and then causing bad feelings that way and alienating some kids because they didn't do anything wrong. So I think that's all we're trying to do collectively is figure out some language, some pathway to get there that gives kids use of the parks, other people too, but doesn't interfere with those rights to use the park and lets us regulate in the circumstance where we need to regulate, and I know you're working your way there. So now I'm thinking, do we need to send them back with this dialogue that we've given them and still hold off on first reading, or is there some navigation here on first reading that we could do and then think about it in the gap and then look at some revised language in 2 weeks?
I'm comfortable passing this on first reading. Some of the language does need to be cleaned up, and I think you've pointed out the lack of parallelism in number 16 that can be worded in a way that fits the ordinance better and gets to the point. But I like what is in here. I think for first reading purposes, and we can tighten it a little bit. I guess I would defer to Member Pierce if he's comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with that. If for no other additional reason, is it does still create a little bit of space for resident feedback, additional comments. Yeah.
I almost think you could combine 15 and 16 in some fashion so that you don't lose that concept that's tethered to the beginning of 16, where gatherings by a group of a rentable park building, park shelter, athletic field shall have no priority of use or right of use of that space in the park without a permit. You know, but it doesn't say you can't use it. It just says you don't have priority use. Make that clearer, maybe. You know.
You can look at that, Mayor.
And to me, you don't have to get a permit. So we'd encourage people to get a permit. But if you do get a permit, then you've got priority.
That is correct, Mayor. Also, I mean, there are a lot of other advantages of getting a permit. We've worked very diligently when, say, we've had restroom damage, that occurs, and we know that there's a graduation party there the next day, either to help prioritize maintenance, to work with those folks to say, hey, can we move you to a different location? How can we help adapt that, right? I think the hardest thing is supporting groups of a large size without knowing when or where they would be coming. So in addition to the priority of use, it's also helps us in the sense of plan better for how we manage those systems. As I said, we're booking those spaces as well, and we're upwards of 2,000 at just those places that I listed.
If we know our PD and we know how they interact with people. But if you've been on the wrong side, if you're from a group of people that have been on the wrong side of selective enforcement, you worry about selective enforcement. And I know that's what you're trying to avoid too, is putting anybody on the PD in a position where they'd be accused after the fact of selective enforcement. So trying to navigate all of this is a little bit tricky, but I think based on the things that we want to make sure that they have as tools, we got to do something. So how about, remember, Risser,
just grammatically,
Go ahead.
number 17 also needs work. It's the first word was gatherings, and then it was changed to gather, and so now it doesn't work. But you have articulated my primary concern, and I think I agree we're all on the same page. We don't want to be punitive, but we want to be. And I am still concerned that this could, there are some things that need to be worked out, especially with 17. And also, we do want our parks to be welcoming, and we don't want people feeling like, oh my gosh, I could get into a huge amount of trouble just for kicking a soccer ball around with my friends. So I can understand. I'm grateful this is not a please vote to pass this tonight, and this is the first reading. And so I think it's improved a lot since we first got it, and I appreciate that. But I do still have some concerns, and we all do. We've all articulated that. I think this is a case where we're all on the same page. So.
I think it's just good to make it clear up front that if you're free to use the parks, even if you're a group of 25 or more, you can use a building or a shelter or athletic field, but if someone comes and has a permit, then they have priority.
Currently, or in this proposal?
No, in the future.
Yeah, if you're over 25, we would ask you to get a permit, right? That's the language of number 15.
Yeah, but you don't have to.
Theoretically, you don't, right?
If you think that there's a chance that a group of 25 or more could not use the park unless they had a permit, we need to know that.
That's what I'm stating in 15. A group of 25 or more gathering at a park using a building, a shelter, or an athletic field would necessitate a permit.
And that's an $80 an hour cost.
Then why does it say in 16 that gatherings by a group, undefined, which could mean 10, 25, a rentable park, building, park, shelter, athletic field shall have no priority of use or right of use of that space?
That's to give the priority to the person with the permit. So 16 is where a group could be of 4 people that are in your picnic shelter that you have rented and may not leave. And this would indicate that the group with the permit has priority of use of that space. So we do not have that mechanism now. So that group could be, a group of 1, a group of 2, could potentially be an obstacle to a group that actually did have a permit.
That takes me back then to the situation we had at Yancey Park. We got over 25 kids down there playing soccer and touch football. They don't have a permit. If that happens again and they don't have a permit and nobody comes down to use the park, then what?
It would only be if we're called down there to engage with what is occurring or observing that. It could start with education. It could start with, is there a priority of use? It could be asking to leave, and it could escalate from there. We looked at 25 because the size of the gathering, 25 kind of hit a threshold of being a little less impulsive. 25 seemed organized. That's 2 full teams of soccer teams, 4 substitutes, and a referee. That's a large gathering.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. And so I think about 25 people chewing gum, throwing away their pop cans, tearing up the field and stuff. That's a lot of people. And so I think that was part of what we discussed last time was the wear and tear on the park facilities with that larger group. So I don't know if that helps at all, but I think about, having to clean up the garbage from a large group.
Manager Neal.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I think we have time, we certainly have time to put this topic in a work session discussion. I think it'd be easier for you to discuss and to edit a document if we were in that kind of setting. We have time to do that. We have time on our September 1st work session to use that time for that purpose if you'd like to.
I like that idea better than us. You heard this conversation this evening.
Yes.
And then basically telling Dave Kendall to go back and draft something, and he makes his best guess at what he's trying to do instead of us just working through it in a work session. Others feel the same way?
We'll invite Dave to come to the work session too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We'll let Dave come.
Yeah.
So no first reading then?
No first reading.
We don't have to do it tonight.
Okay.
So table this
to September 1st.
But when's the work? Let's see. Well, we might not have the language polished up.
So, yeah.
Table it to September 15th.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Is that okay with people? All right. With respect to ordinance, proposed ordinance 2026-12, which would amend Chapter 24 of the Edina City Code regarding additional restrictions for parks and publicly owned properties, is there a motion to table this matter to September 15th, 2026, the meeting of the City Council on September 15th, 2026? Is A motion to that effect?
So moved.
Member Risser moves.
Second.
Member Pierce seconds the postponement of this matter to the September 15, 2026 meeting of the Edina City Council. Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Member Jackson.
I guess I'm concerned, that's 2 more weeks of summer. Things can happen, and we still don't have a way to do anything about it. And so that's, I suppose we can vote, first and second reading on the 15th, but there was a lot of concern, and, social media is still out there to have pop-up groups and everything. I don't know if we want to, that's almost a full month again to delay it. So that I'm going to vote against that, I believe.
I think that's fair. The question, my concern would be Arneson Acres, just from our conversation, that is very disruptive. I don't know if there's something we would want to do to address that now versus waiting until September 15th. And then in terms of Yancey Park, I mean, my biggest concern there is still people that are gathering for like legitimate reasons. Like, how do we address that? And so I know that's one of the things we would address in the working session.
Let me back up a second. We would have been on second reading on this ordinance on September 1st. And, maybe one possibility would be between now and September 1st work session, we could have Mr. Kendall work up some additional language so we're a little bit further down the road. And maybe we'd be able to do the whole thing on September 1st, to your point of reading and waiving.
Yeah, I would be more comfortable with that.
Withdraw that motion.
That would be 2 weeks.
I have found Member Jackson's points compelling, so I, see the logic of that.
I think Member Pierce is going to withdraw that reluctant second. All right, let's go back at it then. Should we postpone this matter for determination by the City Council? This is proposed ordinance 2026-12, which would amend Chapter 24 of the Edina City Code regarding additional restrictions for parks and publicly owned properties to the meeting of the City Council on September 1st, 2026. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we got a motion by Member Pierce, second by Member Jackson, to postpone this matter for decision on September 1st, 2026 at the Edina City Council meeting. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Risser.
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, Director Vetter. That was really helpful. It was a more content-rich conversation tonight. Thanks to you, and thanks to Mr. Kendall's redrafting. I think we're at 8.2 now, which would be a little discussion from the city manager about possibly changing our methodology of dealing with our city, state, and national legislative platforms.
Thank you, Your Honor. The proposal tonight is really offered to you after we have kind of developed some etiquette and some protocol around how we put together your state legislative and national legislative agendas. It really came to staff, if we've been doing this for the past couple of years, that perhaps there's there's some unnecessary redundancy in what we're doing. We belong to at least 3 organizations as a city, but both the League of Cities, Metro Cities, and Municipal Legislative Commission that all do the same kind of process, that care about the issues that we care about. And if we could, instead of trying to replicate and provide our own platform of priorities, could we use theirs and add some deference to what is happening at those kind of regional levels. So really not going through the process of forming a platform, but still have a process for putting together priorities that are very Edina specific, that really most communities have something like that anyway. It's, somewhere 5 to 7, 5 to 10 kind of items that are very specific about city government, not about county government or state government or even national government. So that is a proposal I wanted to put in front of you tonight. The council has the discretion about how we do this, so we'll take our lead from you, but this is an offer for you.
Yeah, thoughts from council members? Councilmember Jackson, this used to be your world.
Yes. So I think this is a great idea. It will help us also when we go to Washington to sort of take up that large voice of what the National League of Cities is talking about. We can always talk about, Edina specific things, but I think that'll make the conversations flow better. And it also, I don't think that we want to go down rabbit holes that might be coming in the future. We've been, pretty disciplined, I think, about so far, but I really like this as a way to focus our efforts.
Other thoughts, Member Risser?
Yes, and actually today and yesterday I have been listening to the platform committee meetings from the League of Minnesota Cities online, because they are meeting in Duluth now, hashing things out, and they've had some very good discussions on affordable housing as well as the Family Medical Leave Act and other topics. So I think this makes a lot of sense, but I do think, it was interesting to see the cities that were represented physically there in Duluth, and I had planned on going up, but could not really swing it. But I do, even though I just said that, think it would be good if we are going to take this route, and even if we're not, maybe participate a little bit more when it comes to those gatherings where we are actually talking about policy and what would make sense for the next legislative session, so that we do have a voice in that dialogue.
Councilmember Risser, thank you for mentioning that, because the league does kind of take this. They do a road show, right, where they take their platform out into a number of different locations around the state, and so there's at least one, if not two, opportunities to do that here in the Twin Cities too.
Councilmember Pierce, any comment?
I have no additional comments.
Yeah, this caused you to think of something else. Councilmember Jackson.
Yes, this is for Manager Neal. So in your Friday report, can you please give us the dates and times of those? That'd be great.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thanks.
I think this whole notion of figuring out what our priorities are, and then with respect to the organizations we belong to, we just track along there, and if somebody asks us at the legislature, while we're over there on one of our bills, what do you feel about this particular bill? From the MLC or the League of Minnesota Cities, we can opine on that. I think this is a much more streamlined approach. In fact, I've often wondered over the last couple of years, how did our legislative agenda get so big? And people have worked hard on it, especially our fellows. We probably took some pressure off of you. No. All right. Let's see. Oh, we got a primary election results report coming from our clerk.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to get in a quick announcement too, before Sharon takes the mic, that we are canceling your HRA meeting on October 1st.
Okay.
That's all I've got tonight.
All right, very good. Clerk Ellison,
Yes.
another stellar job.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Kudos to my team that helps out also. So tonight I just wanted to share with you the results of the primary election. Actually, we had nearly a 20% higher turnout than we've had in the last 2 years. So we had 37% turnout for the primary. And from that breakdown, we had on election day, 26% voted at their polling places, while 8% came during those 18 days of early voting here at City Hall, and 3% voted by mail. So with these numbers, the 18 days of voting that I actually had you approve, there were mixed feelings on that, right? But it did work out great, actually, in having the 18 days of voting, because we processed 3,175 voters here at City Hall, which aligns perfectly with the data that I had shared with you when I asked you to approve the 18 days of early voting. And then in terms of how many voters we had here at City Hall, our lowest number was on July 29th, where we had 99 voters. And then our highest was on August 10th, the last day of early voting, when Councilmember Pierce came to vote, I believe, when we had our highest number at 735.
Ooh, wow.
Yes, and that is not uncommon, actually, because during early voting, that's when most voters are looking to vote. It's either here at City Hall to put their ballot in the ballot counter or at their polling place on election day. And for the general, I am expecting that we will see multiple days where we will have more than 700 voters coming to City Hall to vote. So overall, it was a great turnout. One anomaly that we did experience was that on election day, it is not strange for voters to come into City Hall thinking that they can vote at City Hall on election day, but we had 200 voters come into City Hall trying to vote at City Hall. We've generally would have maybe about 30 to 50 voters. And so I'm not sure what information they were getting, why they chose to come to City Hall. Lynette and Becky at the front desk were rock stars. They jumped on the Secretary of State's website, found their polling place, and redirected them to their polling place. But yes, a very strange event for us on Election Day. So other than that, I think it was...
Take a little credit for that mentoring of Lynette and Becky. I mean, it was masterful, really, handling 200 people that expect to be able to vote here, and now they got to go somewhere else.
It was. And most were pretty kind.
Some were compliant, but I'm sure there were a few that were insisting they should still be able to vote here.
Yes, absolutely. we did have that. Even one voter who tried to tell me that he should be able to vote after we were already closed. So it was very interesting. But a great turnout all around, great experience, great team of people that helps out. So
Well, kudos to you and your team.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Anything else from anyone on that, on the election? Okay. Manager Neal, anything else other than what you've already provided?
That's all for me, thanks.
Member Pierce?
Nothing from me.
Okay. Member Jackson?
September 4th is the big band event at Nolan Main's put on by the Ed Fund, and it's a fun event every year, so I encourage people to come, listen to live music, and think about helping students.
Good. Member Risser?
Resident Frankel's comments about dead trees made me think about live buckthorn, and particularly live buckthorn on the public right-of-way on the, now I have to be sure I get it right, on the west side of Wooddale, because, and between the country club and the bike lane. And I really think we need to figure out a way to clear that. It is a problem that came up when we were talking about changing the bike lanes. It used to be cleared. I did actually walk that segment to try to discover the no parking signs. There are a total of 5 no parking signs in that area, and you can just see one. So 4 of them are completely embedded in buckthorn. And I think we need to get rid of it because you can't, pull over, you can't, sometimes the foliage ends up kind of creeping over the curb and all of that. And we really, the public right-of-way should be made available. So I don't know if there's a plan to get that back to the grass that it once was, but it, I think, would be a good thing for us to do. And that's all I've got.
One of the, on the tree issue, one of the things I thought our resident David Frankel mentioned was, the danger of falling trees on city property, and I think you might want to comment on our city forester, and are they doing an effective job of taking down the trees that are dead and making sure that we don't have trees standing that could fall over in a bad storm, for example?
I'm sure there are trees that might fall over in a storm.
Dead or alive.
Dead or alive. We have, but we have a forestry group that handles this, and I think we all know Luther. He does a great job in getting out there and but he does need to apply some priority to what he sees in the field, and that doesn't always. It's not always appreciated by others when he has to make some decisions about what can be left and what has to go. But he's active in doing it every day he works.
Yeah, I noticed. I think I think we've all noticed this. The ash tree devastation has really come home now. It's a lot of dead trees on. I see a lot of them on MnDOT right away and other locations as well. Just a quick update. I got exec committee tomorrow and tab meeting following. That's tab exec. I'm going to take a look at the Craftsman tomorrow. I think you were over there a few months ago. I was, yeah. I'm going to go take a look at that tomorrow, and then walk with the mayor tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at Centennial Lakes, if anybody wants to come and join me. 6 o'clock, Centennial Lakes, right at the Centrum. I'll be there. That's it for me. Anybody else have anything? All right. City council meeting stands adjourned.